young man. Oh, yeah. They found a knife hill on the stair below. Male DNA, but Eddie's wasn't on show. Fingernails, whole skin from a desperate fight. Riley shut his eyes, turned out the light. What about the suspect and the blood by his cab? What about real leads they refused to grab? No forced entry found, just a political stage. Riley climbing higher for his own game to make. Be real, yes we can. They locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man, can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts, oh, they buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. Keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Hey, 30 years gone in a cell for a crime while he sat on the throne making sure to climb. Called him a monster, a predator so cold. Changing lost to cover truths too bold. Rule 30 motion, ready to rise. Let's test the DNA. No more alibis. Yeah, keep it real. Test the hills, test the nails. No more covers, no more political sales. Yes, we can. Free Eddie O'Brien. The truth is coming home.
Cellmark, their chosen lab expert in the game, tested the blood, telling the world the name. Eddie O'Brien, they said with conviction, but the truth came out like a hidden addiction. DNA tested, but what did it show? Excluded my man in that courtroom flow. Not a maybe, not a doubt, they sealed the fate. How you sell that story when the evidence won't wait? Stabbings and chaos, the narrative spins, but the DNA's whispering, where do we begin? You're trying to pin the blame, but you're missing the mark. Eddie's outside, lit up, nothing but dark. Can't blame the dog when it wasn't even home. This ain't a fair fight. Eddie's been alone. Janet Downing's world, blood on the slate, but the night's truth waiting can't seal Eddie's fate. How do you even tell when facts slip away? We dance round the lies like the night turns to day. Lights dim down, jury on pause in the courtroom theater. I'm just a part of the cause. You're trying to pin the blame, but you're missing the mark. Eddie's outside, lit up, nothing but dark. Can't blame the dog when it wasn't even home. This ain't a fair fight. Eddie's been alone. Oh, chaos in the streets, but the truth won't die. You can try to twist the knife, but look me in the eye. Exclusions in the lab, but you still wanna shout. Did it run through your veins? What's this all about? You're trying to pin the blame, but you're missing the mark. Eddie's outside, lit up, nothing but dark. Oh, can't blame the dog when it wasn't even home. believe in the shadow, but the light's never wrong. Eddie O'Brien's excluded. That's where you belong. How you gonna sell that story? Leave him out in the cold, in the echoes of justice. The truth's always bold.
Oh yeah, man. Happy 250th America, man. What's up, everybody? How we doing? How are we doing? You know, everyone's driving, man. Support Eddie. Shout out to Mama O'Brien going to visit Eddie. Let him know we all over here, you know, rooting for him, supporting him, you know, and hoping that this is the last 4th of July visit, 5th of July visit, you know, that he'll have to have, you know, because he'll be out next 4th of July. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? You know, I was just going through some of Margo's book. You know, you got it up on the screen. Her new book comes out July 28th. You know, definitely support Margo Nash, Eddie O'Brien Defense Fund, and grab this book. It's going to have 10 more chapters, man, and we don't know what's going to be in them 10 chapters, man. We all might hit the ceiling when we read that. We know a lot of people are going to hit the ceiling. We all might hit that damn ceiling. But yeah, we're going to talk to Margo Nash today. You know, from everything I learned about Margo Nash, a relentless advocate. Let me know y'all can hear me. You got good sound too. You know, a former Department of Social Services worker, you know, who opened up her own practice, you know, to serve vulnerable families. You know, she was a bar advocate, you know, a part-time public defender. Well, that's similar to a public defender, kind of. I believe she stayed in a rotation to do pro bono cases, is what that is. You know, and then she came upon Eddie O'Brien's case. You know, she was appointed guardian ad lib, GAL, we'll call it, GAL for short. You know, for Eddie's case at 15 years old. You know, meaning she was the adult responsible for helping Eddie, for helping him understand his legal representation, navigate the system. You know, but when you read her book, you know, it seems like Mr. George really gave anybody any type of, I don't think George kept Margo in it at all. What's the best place to buy the first book that helps Margo? I like to bring it so she can sign the first one to August 7th. I'll be sending another donation to purchase a t-shirt for my dear friend. I know, you know, we will ask Margo that. I know from, I think my friend, you know, when he wrote his books, you know, because Amazon takes a big percentage of it, which I'm not, you know, go to Amazon if that's how you need to order the book. However you need to get it, I would say bookstores, you know, go to your bookstore, order the book, tell them it's coming out on the 28th. I'm going to put the link up right now because I have it in the banner. I believe it is the same link, but it's Amazon. You know, you could also go to wildbluepress.com or your local bookseller. By special order from Margo Nash book, Politics of Murder. Order yours now. You know, I don't think you could pre-order them. I asked Margo that. She said she don't think that they could be pre-ordered. She was going to ask the publicist. So when Margo jumps on here, we will ask her that. You know, I told her I'll be jumping on a little early for her to come on about, you know, like 12:10-ish. You know, how was everybody's 4th of July? You know, I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. But I'm looking for Barnes & Noble. There we go. You know, little Brian said Barnes & Noble. I'm going to order a special size shirt from DXL for my husband. Is there any way I could purchase the decals and put it on myself so he has one also? I'm bringing people. There you go. The more, the better. How many people? We might need to go to the Boston Garden. But yeah, Margo was really there from beginning, and she's still there, supporting Ed, really, really being there for him, attending every court session, gained access to the files, witnessed firsthand the political pressure that surrounded this case. And I don't think it took Margo long to be convinced that Eddie could not have committed this crime. I mean, where was the motive? There was no motive, right? We had a lack of motive. We had, he didn't really have any opportunity. I don't think there is a ticket. Maybe donations. I mean, donations are really, me personally, I would have had a ticket at the door because the more money that we could raise for Eddie, I mean, what's wrong with $10, $15 donation, like to get in the door, I thought would have, but knowing what's going, I don't think there probably is, but if there's a donation bucket, so but probably not. But the more money that they could raise for Ed, the better. So salute to Eddie. Got to try to get him out. And I mean, look at all the stuff. Like I said, the lack of opportunity, the lack of motive, right? Forensic evidence, right? No blood on Eddie. I mean, there was so many things, but she has a book out now, The Politics of Murder. It's a 350-page investigation how Eddie became a political stepping stone for powerful Massachusetts officials. It exposes the flawed police work, prosecutorial, their ambition. The super predator law was big. People like Joe Biden started pushing that. Back in the 1990s, they wanted to open more prisons, and how Eddie's case helped change juvenile law. Well, when Margo gets here, we'll ask her all of that. Eddie's case changed juvenile law, sending kids to adult prison for life. Now, you can't be upset at Eddie for that because it's really Riley's fault. You want to be mad at anybody, be mad at Riley. I mean, but Margo definitely had an impact. I mean, Margo's work helping bringing Eddie's case to the forefront. So people, I think even the Innocent Project was working on it at one time, and Eddie talked about at the parole hearing why he stepped away from the Innocent Project. And I mean, Eddie, he only has one shot at this, so it has to be right. But I think Margo Nash is widely credited with keeping Eddie's story alive for 31 years. But this case shook Massachusetts. I mean, a 15-year-old Somerville altar boy, some started calling it the altar boy killings. He was best friend of one of Janet Downing's sons. No criminal record, no history of violence. There was no mental illness. I just text Margo, make sure everything was okay. Wait to hear back from her. No mental illness. And what's he accused of? Was he's accused of Janet, murdering Janet Downing, 42 years old, stabbed 98 times in her home back in July 23rd, 1995. And Eddie was identified right away as a suspect within hours. No blood, no motive, no opportunity, a compromised crime scene. There was other people with stronger motives and opportunities. The super predator panic was sweeping everywhere. It was getting bigger and bigger. Mass officials were pushing that juvenile justice reform, right? DA Tom Riley personally supervised and prosecuted this case, which is very rare when you got 250 guys that are working under you, that usually do that. And 8 days after Eddie's conviction, Riley announced that he's running for attorney general. Like, are you serious? I was just reading something about that. Yeah. And then Riley said he would have the help of U.S. Attorney Wayne Budd, his closest friend, in getting his campaign going. Okay, so Safari won't let her open it. All right, I'm going to send it over to Messenger for you. So give me a minute, folks. We'll be right back. I got to take care of something. We got to go rescue Margo. We'll be right back.
Ooh, yeah.
Late night in Somerville, shadows flicker and play. Whispers of a crime, but the truth lost its way. Oh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. A horrific crime, the silent sharp as a knife. Janet on the floor, a brutal end to her life. Pinning it on a kid who didn't stand a chance. Eddie at 15, caught in a circumstance. No blood on his clothes, no stains on his feet. But Thomas Riley schemes beneath the heat. A plan in his head, climbing high with disdain, using power and a case, feeding off the pain. Can we keep it real? Yes, we can. We can. Locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts. They buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. We keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Oh, yeah, they found found a knife hilt on the stair below. Male DNA, but Eddie's wasn't on show. Fingernails, whole skin from a desperate fight. Riley shut his eyes, turned out the light. What about the suspect and the blood by his cab? What about real leads they refused to grab? No forced entry found, just a political stake. Riley climbing higher for his own game to make it real. Yes, we can. They locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts. Woo! They buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. Keep it real. Yes, we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Hey, 30 years gone in a cell for a crime while he sat on the throne making sure to climb. Called him a monster, a predator so cold. Changing laws to cover truths too bold. Rule 30 motion, ready to rise. Let's test the DNA. No more alibis. Yeah, keep it real. Test the hills, test the nails. No more covers, no more political sounds. Yes, we can. Free Eddie O'Brien. The truth is coming
You walk through the gates. Reality sets the stage. With every step, the walls whisper your name. You go to prison, they shackle your dreams, an echo in the dark, or so it seems. Fighting your case with nothing but truth, clenching your fists as you steady your proof. And then they hit you with words like stones. You show no remorse, they carve in your bones. You won't take responsibility, you're not ready. We paint with excuses, keep the truth unsteady. How you gonna take blame for a storm you didn't bring? Like blaming the man who's just caught in the swing. The system don't care about the path you tread, only about boxes and a story well read. A trapdoor's waiting on both sides of this game. Confess to a crime, dance in someone's shame. They're looking for confessions, not justice, not grace. Just a clean little narrative that fits in this space. 20 years in, then 25 more, still saying, I didn't do this, don't they just ignore? Instead of respect, they punish your fight, turning truth into chains, darkness swallowing light. How you gonna take blame for a storm you didn't bring? Like blame blaming the man who's just caught in the swing. The system don't care about the path you tread, only about boxes and a story well read. This ain't rehabilitation, it's a game they play, trading innocent souls for compliance each day. And here's the truth bared raw like a wound, real remorse for the guilty. That's the tune they croon. But innocent hearts beating inside those cells need their stories to shift away from these hells. Change the definitions, let compassion in, because real justice starts where the truth can begin. Your innocence should never serve as your chain. We hold on to hope.
I think we got it now. Let's see. We're gonna have the awesome Margo Nash. So let's see if we can get Margo up here. Margo, hello. All right, I think she's gonna sign out and come back in. So, how is everybody? Sorry about that. We're waiting to get Margo up here. Big shout out to everybody supporting Eddie O'Brien. Hit the like button. It's been 31 years fighting for the truth. Margo's gonna sign back in. A lot of communication problems, I guess. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk to Margo. Everybody, August 7th, the book signing is coming up. Let me put that up on the screen. There we are. It's going to be August 7th, so everyone, if you can get down there, it's going to be at the VFW in Somerville on Summer Street. The Politics of Murder fundraiser, the second edition with 10 extra chapters. That's insane. We're all going to hit the roof. I think some of the stuff that we read in that book. So we'll give Margo a minute to get up here. Mama O'Brien, Trish O'Brien's on her way to see Ed now, so they all know that we support them and we counting on, they can count on us. We're definitely going to be there. I think a lot of people are supporting Eddie. But if you think about this, someone that committed 98 stab wounds, right? Could they murder somebody without being covered in blood? How about inside their eyes? Blood gets all over the place. I would think Eddie would have blood in his eyes, in his ears, in his nose. Places that you wouldn't even think it was possible for him to have any blood. So yeah, we're working on it. Margo's trying to sign in right now. You have 10 new editions. So even if you have the first edition, support Margo Nash, support Eddie O'Brien, grab the book. It's going to have 10 new chapters in there. And I think a lot of us are going to be familiar with a lot of stuff that we hear. I mean, they've been talking about this since October. Yeah, the freshly showered audio tees. I mean, can't forget about that, and all the BS that JFK and them guys exposed. All the lying. How about the dog? Talk about the dog. The dog that barks all the time, right? The dog that barks constantly wasn't barking when Janet was being attacked. Why? That's crazy. Somebody knew that dog, and that dog was probably intimidated of. But how do you do this? Eddie has no blood on him. What does that tell you, right? The murder weapon had DNA that wasn't Eddie's, and the prosecutor didn't want to test it. DNA under Janet's fingernails wasn't tested either. I'm going to try to send Margo another link. Try sending it from the computer, so just bear with me. But yeah, there's no blood on it. So give me a minute. We're going to send Margo another link right now. Oh, okay. She said she's in. So let me get back on that page. No, I don't see you. Let me make sure I sent her the right link. Yeah, so bear with me. We're trying to get Margo up here. Because I don't see her. I don't see her at all. I think I sent her the right link. Hang on, let me check. Let me try to do this again. Invite guest, copy. Yep, that should be the right link. So we're still trying. So while Margo works on that, maybe somebody can assist Margo if you know her, can help her out. But she should just be able to hit the stream, and it tells you to put your camera on or put your mic on, and it should connect. Give me a minute, people. I'll be right back. Technical difficulties here.
Ooh, yeah. shadows flicker and play. Whispers of a crime, but the truth lost its way. Yeah. A horrific crime, the silent sharp as a knife. Janet on the floor, a brutal end to her life. Pinning it on a kid who didn't stand a chance. Eddie at 15, caught in a circumstance. No blood on his clothes, no stains on his feet. But Thomas Riley schemes beneath the heat. A plan in his head, climbing high with disdain, using power and a case, feeding off the pain. Can we keep it real? Yes, we can. We can. Locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts. They buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. We keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Oh, yeah. They found a knife hilt on the stair below. Male DNA, but Eddie's wasn't on show. Fingernails, whole skin from a desperate fight. Riley shut his eyes, turned out the light. What about the suspect and the blood by his cab? What about real leads they refused to grab? No forced entry found, just a political state. Riley climbing higher for his own game to make it real. Yes, we can. We can. They locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts. They buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. Keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Hey, 30 years gone in a cell for a crime while he sat on the throne making sure to climb. Called him a monster, a predator so cold, changing laws to cover truths too bold. Rule 30 motion, ready to rise. Let's test the DNA. No more alibis. Yeah, keep it real. Test the hilt, test the nails. No more covers, no more political sounds. Yes, we can. Free Eddie O'Brien. The truth is coming home.
My bad, my bad. Shit got screwed up big time. But Margo Nash is, damn, man. Margo Nash is right now, she's rebooting her program. She lost her internet. My bad, yo. Shit was just crazy. We had some really technical difficulties to start this show, man. What's going on, man? Welcome. You know, damn. Sometimes they start off a little shaky. You know, I mean, we ain't no professional at this shit, but we were talking about Margo Nash a little bit. She'll be joining us. She's gonna reboot her internet. I told her she could use her phone, you know, but up on the screen, Friday, August 7th, 6 to 10 p.m. at the George Doughboy VFW on Summer Street in Somerville, Mass. You know, get your book. They go on sale July 28th. You can go to, actually, at the top of the screen, you can see it, Amazon.com. But you know what? If you really want to help out Margo, you know, go to Wild Bluebird or go to your local bookstore. Amazon takes 40% off the top. You know, I'll say that now before she gets here because they don't want her saying that shit. Yeah, but they take 40% off the top. But Margo has always been there standing by Eddie. She understood his rights, you know, his humanity, what that boy went through. She was at every hearing. She read every file. She watched every political move go down right there in her face, you know, like she could see it all. And like she said in the book, she was like, Bob George couldn't help Eddie. You know, the juvenile courts couldn't save Eddie. She said, I couldn't save Eddie. The law couldn't save Eddie. That's some deep shit right there. You know, that really is. That's some deep shit. And it's crazy how some of these political monsters like Riley will go, you know, in the Commonwealth, no matter what state you are in, even for our people, you know, on the other side of the world. This shit happens everywhere. The evidence don't add up. The story don't make sense. The truth gets smothered under the weight of ambition. But Margo didn't walk away. You really got to salute. You have to salute her for that. She stood tall by the O'Briens. And I'll tell you what, the O'Briens didn't fold either. I give them a lot of credit. They did not fold. The O'Briens stood tall, and they're still standing tall. God bless them. Because, you know, I know a lot of people that are in the joint locked up, and their family, after a while, they have other children they have to take care of. They have things to do on the outside. So they kind of just, they end up getting forgotten about. People in prison, jails, and cemeteries, man. That's where you go to be forgotten about. You know? And that's a shame. So yeah, we're still waiting for Margo. You know, she's gonna upload her computer. You know, but Margo didn't walk away. Margo stood 10 toes down, man. Margo stood more firmer than most men do. You know what I mean? She didn't let the system convenience become Eddie's coffin. You know what I mean? She kept fighting for Eddie. But instead, she wrote The Politics of Murder. You know, a great 350-page book, you know, in a case that was supposed to be open and shut. But I'll tell you what, man, Margo definitely exposed them contradictions. You know, the ignored suspects. How about that? Let's talk about that. The ignored suspects in this case. Boy, imagine that. Like, Free my boy Eddie O'Brien. That's what I'm saying, man. Free Eddie today. You know what I mean? Let Eddie out, because this is crazy. You know what I mean? The stuff in that case, how come his DNA is not on the murder weapon? So you don't test for other DNA? Try to make that make sense. And how do you get a conviction on that? You know, and how does Bob George, end up screwing up so bad that the newspaper article, the natural born killers shit, he couldn't get that thrown out because he did dumb things. And then what happened? You could say he's responsible for Gina Mahoney not being able to testify because he wants to put the cart before the horses. But Margo refused to stay silent, and Eddie's case now is back in the light. And it's convenient because right after, that Riley was bow-legged going into Eddie's trial? Like, that dude had to go get his legs straightened out, like, bow-legged. You know what I mean? And I would joke around, like, Riley being caught, like, Your Honor, my evidence is crooked, but I'm not. You know what I mean? They said he came to court like 2 inches taller. So everything he was working up for this, he needed a juvenile killer to change this law. He tried to get it with Deanna Cremens. That didn't work. He needed that. He had this all set up, and he knew that with this Eddie O'Brien case, he would get nonstop media attention. He looked at the calendar. Isn't it funny how October is when that trial ended, right? When's the election? Like, not too much longer after that. So it's like your name's in the news all the time. Like, prosecuting this kid, making him look like this horrible person. When you got a kid like Paul Jr. that lied so much on the stand, but Bob George just couldn't. He couldn't nail it. He couldn't bring it home. Paul Jr. Yeah, my mother was alive then. Why you gotta say it like that? The DNA on the murder weapon is identifiable and is not Eddie's. But Riley chose not to identify that. You ever wonder why? I'm still keeping an eye out for Margo. So she had to reboot her computer. Yeah, Cape Cod. There was DNA under Janet's fingernails. Right? And Riley chose not to identify that. No forced entry in the house. What if one of the kids yell outside? Like, oh, I know what they did. They were hiding. Didn't somebody in the family used to hide under the bed? I mean, Paul used to beat the shit out of his mother. Nice kid. But he was only doing what Daddy taught him, right? Because Daddy used to beat the crap out of Janet. So Paul figures, all right, I'll do what Daddy, anybody that can put their hands on their mother is a horrible person, man. You could put your hands on someone that took you into this world. And the dog not barking, that's crazy because I think Virginia Reckley wrote in a statement, that the dog would always bark. And you would think during a violent struggle, right? There's a possibility the dog had to know the intruder. Right? Like, for Janet to get a beating like that, and a golden retriever, pretty big dog, you know, and when they start seeing all that blood, they start seeing all that violence, they're gonna react unless they are afraid of the person doing it. Unless they're afraid of the person doing it. Yeah, go check out the politicsofmurder.com. A lot of good information on that site as well. Absolutely, man. Salute to Margo. I don't think there are tickets. I didn't see any tickets on the flyer. You can ask Denise or ask Sherry. I didn't think it wouldn't be a bad idea having tickets, you know, because you know Eddie's gonna need all the funds he could get for the Rule 30. You know, a lot of specialists. Shout out to Freebird, man. You know, listen, Freebird just getting in here. Freebird sent me some lyrics for a song. She said, shout out to you and your wife, everything that you guys do. So I'm going to play that real quick, man. Shout out to Freebird for this.
Ooh, yeah. Late night in Somerville, shadows flicker and play. Whispers of a crime, but the truth lost its way. Oh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. A horrific crime, the silent sharp as a knife. Janet on the floor, a brutal end to her life. Pinning it on a kid who didn't stand a chance. Eddie at 15, caught in a circumstance. No blood on his clothes, no stains on his feet. But Thomas Riley schemes beneath the heat. A plan in his head, climbing high with disdain, using power and a case, feeding off the pain. Can we keep it real? Yes, we can. We can. Locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts, they buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. We keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Oh, yeah. They found a knife hilt on the stair below. Male DNA, but Eddie's wasn't on show. Fingernails, whole skin from a desperate fight. Riley shut his eyes, turned out the light. What about the suspect and the blood by his cab? What about real leads they refused to grab? No forced entry found, just a political stage. Riley climbing higher for his own game to make.
See, I didn't know. I'm not always in the picture. Oh, wait, we got in touch with Margo. She's having trouble connecting with the StreamYard, so I'm going to put her up to the microphone and we'll have that conversation. with Margo Nash. Just let me know if y'all could good sound and all that stuff. Just give me a minute. I go right up.
Demanding the truth, keep it real. Yes, we can. They locked away a boy and destroy a young man.
Yeah. Selmar, your chosen lab expert in the game. Tested the blood, telling the world the name.
Called him a monster, a predator so cold. Changing loss of cover, truth too bold. Rule 30 motion, ready to rise. Let's test the DNA. No more alibis. Yeah, keep it real. Test the hilt, test the nails. No more cover.
Right. We back with Margo Nash. Sorry about that. We tried to get her up on StreamYard, but that didn't work. Say hello so make sure everybody can hear you.
Hi, my name is Margo.
A
very frustrated YouTuber.
Oh, I can only imagine. So let me know in the chat while Margo's talking if y'all can hear her.
Can you hear me?
Well, we're gonna give them a minute to respond. But you stood by Eddie for 31 years, man. What moment made you realize that something was wrong with this case?
I think I always knew something was wrong with this case from the get-go because it was just everything was too strange. The way it went down was too strange. The quickness of it was too strange. The DA coming in to arraign him himself, the DA himself coming in to arraign him, all of it was strange.
What was the first red flag that really made your hair stand up?
I think that, as I write in the original book, I didn't realize, I don't know how many people did, I did not really understand that his DNA was absent from the scene, from the murder, from the murder weapon, and from her fingernails until I actually read the reports myself. That was not clear in the trial.
And I read so many things that it looks like Bob Judge might have dropped the ball on. The newspaper article was one. Possibly Gina Mahoney's testimony could have been another one. Was it that bad?
Can they hear us?
Yes, they can hear.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, I mean, it was bad, and especially when I read it, so long after the trial, and it was not until 2015 when Ed asked me to write the book, and that's when I went through everything, 30 boxes of material, line by line, and said, my God, I can't believe this. Everything there was one huge misjudgment, mistake, error, misunderstanding after another, and it just kept going and going. During the trial, the big red flag that I had was that Eddie truly believed that he was going to testify and tell his side of the story. And I used to see him a lot then. I used to go up to the jail. He was in Cambridge, and they'd say, well, they're going to come up and prepare me for testimony. And I'd say the next morning, did they prepare you? And he'd say, no. And I'd think, what is going on? It's going to take 2 weeks to prepare him, not an evening. And he was just surprised right up until the last day of trial when Bob rested that he didn't get to go on the stand. And I asked him, why didn't you testify? And he said, because Bob George said that they hadn't proved their case and it wasn't necessary.
And I did read in your book that up until the last day, Eddie had a lot of faith in Bob George, and he really thought, no, they'll be here, because they had not gone to see him at the prison.
Yeah, they didn't spend a lot of time with him. We'd see it. They'd see it in the mornings. We'd all go in the mornings when he was in the holding cell off of the courtroom, Superior Courtroom in Middlesex. But that was just guys joking around like they were in a gym or something. I mean, there was never any substance to any of these conversations, even instructions about what was going to happen today or what he expected to happen, or and Eddie spent a lot of the transfer hearings playing hangman with the attorney next to him.
Well, I think Eddie, and even JoJo says, like, Eddie still thinks they're going to come up and say, we're sorry, we made a mistake. Like he really believes that they're gonna come up here and say, I'm sorry, Eddie. You know what I mean? And hopefully this Rule 30 is their way of saying I'm sorry.
I cannot see that under any circumstances happening. Not on your life.
How
I just cannot see all of these people that were involved in this, especially Tom Riley, saying, you're right.
Oh no, they're never gonna say that, but
anyway.
Absolutely no, they're not gonna say that. But I think just letting him, the court releasing him, would be great. That would be enough.
The court is still controlled by the same powers that got us into this mess.
Wow,
Yeah, I mean, these people are alive and well and still influential.
Right, and go ahead.
And they still have a direct line to the whatever judge he gets assigned to, because his trial judge has died. McDaniel died, so we don't know who the Rule 30 will get assigned to, but you can bet that the assignment is going to be somebody that we don't want. I mean, I could just bet you that now. So it would make it 10 times harder to do the Rule 30. And I mean, they still do everything they can to make Eddie's case the hardest case on earth to overturn,
It just really burns me up that the political ambition that these guys had, man, how politics overrided justice, and the super predator panic was in play, and it was all on Eddie's back.
That's right. I firmly believe that. And, all I can say to that is what Eddie experienced, and what now is because Eddie had, first of all, Eddie was innocent, and he got the support from his family. His family has really driven all of this to where we are today. And he's had that support for 31 years now. He's always had that support. It's never wavered. He has never wavered. But do you know how many black and brown people are in jail right now who are innocent too, but who didn't have families who could do that? Whose families may have fallen apart over it, I mean, it's taken its toll on everybody, to try to get this thing right. And we still haven't been able to get it right, And I firmly believe also that, that we in some ways are benefiting from what happened with Karen Reed, because people got to see the corruption just day to day, and it's even worse now. When I was writing about this corruption 10 years ago, people were like, well, that sounds a little conspiratorial, and then, and certainly in 1995, nobody would have believed me if I had said, here's what I think is going on, but I couldn't see the bigger picture then. But if even in 2016, when the book was first published, people weren't ready to hear that, judges called judges and said, change your opinion. They weren't ready to hear that Supreme Court judges appointed judges specifically to get Eddie transferred up to Superior Court so he couldn't be tried as a juvenile. I mean, here's Tom Riley, the sitting district attorney, and he loses a transfer hearing in juvie. Nobody loses a transfer hearing in juvie. That's unheard of. They have the first hearing, the child is assumed to be guilty. How can you lose that? And he lost it. And because he lost it, he had to appeal. When he appealed, then he didn't want it in front of Heffernan again. And so he got the powers that be to take Heffernan off of it.
And I'll tell you what, that Heffernan guy, he knew it. Like he was getting a lot of pressure from judges upstairs as they want you to change your ruling, and I think maybe he feels guilty today for this case.
I don't think he feels guilty at all, because what he said to them is, no, I will not change my ruling. He wanted them to say that Eddie was not couldn't be rehabilitated, and he was not going to say that. And they said, well, we're going to take you off of it if you don't say that. And he said, do what you have to do. I'm not going to say that. That's not true.
Yeah,
he's stuck to his guns. He still asks me about Eddie every time I see him. He has followed this. I sent him copies of the manuscript before it was published. He is. He feels that he feels it'll be very difficult for people to believe what happened. But I think it's so much less difficult thanks to Karen Reed, and I feel so badly about what has happened to her.
No, right. And I started the show off. I said, in a way, it's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of good it happened to her in a way, because it exposed so much corruption, and it
didn't start with Karen Reed, and it didn't start in 2015 when I wrote about it, and it didn't start with Eddie O'Brien. This has been going on for a long time. How much are we going to allow to happen? How many kids are going to have to go, or how many people are going to have to serve life sentences without parole who didn't commit a crime before we say they were framed?
Right, and 30 years is way too long for someone to be, to wait to be exonerated. That seems to be the normal.
Absolutely. Even with these people that are being released on the under Mattis, the emerging adults, and how Massachusetts up that age that if you committed the crime between 17 and 20 now, you're eligible for parole, and they've released 55 people so far who were doing life without parole, and but the only 2 or 3 have claimed innocence, and the one who got out, who claimed innocence and has always claimed innocence, did 42 years before they let him out.
That is unbelievable.
Insane.
What does Eddie's case reveal about juvenile justice in America back in 1995?
Back in 1995, juvenile justice in America was absolutely fine. We were one of the model states until they decided that they wanted to juice it up and make juveniles adults. Adult time for adult crime. They screwed it all up. They changed everything. There was no more rehabilitation. It was all about punishment. And it was that was 90. It was the act of 1996, and it was 2011. So not even 10 years. when the Supreme Court overturned it, Supreme Court in Washington, and said under the Montgomery case, it said, no, you can't do that to children. You know, you can't put them in jail for life. So that was the first. It didn't take long to undo the pretty much the juvenile justice system has been returning to where it was ever since, trying to get back where we were.
Yeah, right. Because they wouldn't, I don't think you would get away with doing that today.
I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right. You might be right. They seem to do what they want when they want.
Exactly. But this was definitely, it wasn't just one political party. You know, Hillary Clinton believed in the super predators too.
Joe Biden pushed it also.
That's right.
He went on stage talking about it.
Well, and I'm not assigning it to a political party. I mean, it was aimed at quelling the Black and Latino gangs in the inner cities. That's what they wanted to do away with. They wanted to put those kids away for life. And in order to get it passed, they couldn't use one of those kids because everybody would say, my God, that's racist. Because it was. But the majority of kids that ended up in Iggy's position were Black and Latino.
Oh, yeah, and the politicians grabbed it up, and even the guy that came out with it ended up saying that he was wrong about the whole super predator movement.
He was dead wrong.
Absolutely.
When you think about it, it's insane to think that there's going to be roving gangs of kids, teenagers with no morals killing our cities. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's what they bought, that was the theory they bought. And it was completely, crime rates among juveniles was already decreasing when they were pushing this.
Yep, they were dead wrong about it, and then they had to go back and reverse some of their wrongs. But you change the law, why not? They've
never said I'm sorry, have they?
No, and like you said earlier, they probably never will. Right. So now you coming out with your second edition of this book. The first book is incredible, man. Like, I really got to say, like, the first book, the DNA, you look at that, and when I argue with people and I say, when they say he's guilty, and I ask them why, and the only thing they tell me is, well, a jury convicted him. Well, yeah, all right, but why is he guilty? What did he do? And they cannot tell me that. And when I tell them there's no DNA, he's excluded from the DNA. There's someone else's DNA on the alleged murder hilt, weapon, whatever you want to call it, on Janet.
Right.
And when they bring up about the blood, I say, listen, the Commonwealth said Eddie's blood was there. Let's wait till it goes to court and see what really was there.
Yeah.
I
covered that in the second edition.
Oh, so awesome, man.
You'll be able to learn some of that, what we have learned since then. So.
Oh, yeah, the second edition is going to be so great. Now, people were asking. I told them that I don't think they could pre-order the book, but it should be available on July 28th. Where should they?
That's supposed to be the launch date. Yeah, July 28th. I think that's still on time, and that'll be available through Amazon, or if you order it from a local bookstore.
Where do you prefer they order it from?
I don't have any preference. I just hope that people read it.
Oh, no, I think they will. And I told people, even if you have the first edition, you have to get the second edition because it's a whole nother story. And then I'm sure there's going to be a trilogy too coming up.
It does a deep dive. It dives deeper. Yeah. No, I don't know. If Eddie ever I should say, when Eddie is released, I don't think we're going to need a third edition. I think we're just going to need a freaking parade, and every bit of the people that have supported him should be just honored. I mean, they should be praised for what they've done for this kid over the years. A lot of people went into the making of this, and this movement to free Eddie, and it's been a long time, that a lot of us have been waiting for it to happen, and it seems like it's happening now, and it couldn't be better timing. And let's hope that we can make our voices heard in the court system to say we're not standing for trials like this. We're not allowing this anymore. You have to give him a chance. He can prove his innocence now. It's indisputable.
He never even got a chance to hold the innocent title. Like, hours after the crime happened, they were already like they already had their sights on Eddie, and it never changed. It never,
That's right.
they take his blood, they test his blood, but nobody else's. When there was motives, you test Eddie's blood. I mean, all kinds of stuff. The hospital set up with Eddie. It's crazy.
That was when they were considering him a suspect. And that was at 10:30, and she had been found at 10 o'clock.
And what? It took him 3 weeks to get a motive. They didn't have a motive for like 3 weeks.
They didn't have a motive for 6 months.
6 months.
And yes, they had no motive. And he kept saying, and Riley kept saying, I don't know what the motive was. And then the first report from the psychiatrist came out and said, you know what, this kid is perfectly normal. He has no mental defects, no hidden agenda, and he had no motive. And Riley thought,
hang on, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit. Probably give it a minute. You still there? Yeah, you're breaking up. I don't know if it's the connection, but you're sounding. Hold on a minute. All right, now I think it's better.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I apologize. I'm glad we were able to
okay.
get you though. I definitely do. And I talked to somebody. I know someone that was accused of a similar crime in Rhode Island, and I asked him about the blood, if his opinion, if Eddie would have been covered in blood from head to toe. Oh, we lost Margo, but his opinion was absolutely. He said he should have had it in his eyes and his nose.
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think Eddie should have been covered in blood for a crime like that, and the amount of time is I just don't think it was possible for everything that they put together,
5 minutes. 5 minutes of time. His time is undisputedly accounted for all the other time. This would have had to take place in 5 to 7 minutes. It's crazy. It is just not believable. It's as crazy as a kid finding somebody dead and then getting mugged in the same hour. Everybody says that's not believable. That's crazy. Well, you know what? It doesn't mean it didn't happen. But this district attorney sold 12 people on the idea that a 15-year-old with no motive went over to his best friend's mother's house, a woman who had changed his diapers when he was little, and Trisha changed Ryan's diapers. I mean, that's how long they'd known each other, and for no reason whatsoever, walked 25 yards across the street and slaughtered somebody's mother and walked out with not a drop of blood on him, not on his white shirt, nothing under his fingernails, nothing. and that he had 5 minutes to do it. He did it in 5 minutes, and he didn't get a drop of blood on him.
Yeah, I said he's a magician and a ninja, and he also scaled a fence. If you listen to people jumping fences or all types of stuff, but you know what? You know Eddie better than anybody, I think. You know, probably as well as anybody. At 15, what was Eddie like, and what did people get wrong about him?
Eddie was so young. I mean, he was way less mature than I was at 15. He was not doing the kind of stuff I was doing at 15. And I'm older than his parents. So, I mean, he was a good kid who was not streetwise. He didn't know anything about the streets. He was a kid from, Mayberry. That's what it was like. That's what Somerville was like at the time,
Mayberry.
And he would turn red when you talked to him. That's how young he was, He was a kid. I can't emphasize that more. He didn't have any clue. He could not assist in his own defense. He didn't have the maturity to even really understand what he was up against. I mean, all he knew was that, what he knew was that he didn't do it. Somehow they would figure that out, and he'd be home soon, because people don't make mistakes like this.
Yeah, and it is almost unbelievable to think that, the system, the people that we elect in, is going to take a 15-year-old boy and send them out to slaughter, for their political gain. And it's like, well, it happened, and here's the proof.
Exactly.
Here it is. How do you think Eddie survived emotionally after spending all these years behind bars? Because he seems like he's pretty intact. He's a pretty sharp kid.
He's not only a really sharp kid, he is really a compassionate guy. I mean, he does stuff for other inmates. I mean, that's how he stayed sane. He has made the time. What he said to me was, when he got to Walpole, he was just turned 17, the January before that. He was 17 years old. He got to Walpole with all these old guys who had been there for, I don't know, a long time and were never getting out. And he said the old guys took him under his wing and taught him how to do time immediately. And he said, if they hadn't done that, I wouldn't have made it. And so that's what he tries to do for other people. He wants to see other people be able to survive in that environment. Whether or not they're guilty doesn't matter. What matters is you got to survive in whatever life you're given, or or you've chosen, or whatever it is. And there's certain basic human rights and things that people require to survive in a somewhat healthy manner. And for Eddie, it's always been, even from the get-go, anytime he has been able to connect with anybody on the outside in a meaningful, emotional way, he has done that. He has taken part in every program that brings outside people behind the walls. He's made friends of these people. He knows their families and their children. I mean, he knows the world he lives in is not real, and that the world he wants to live in is real, and it's outside the walls. So he has developed a whole network of his life outside the walls, and he's trying to teach other guys how to do that.
I think, and someone had made a comment to me about, about Eddie made prison better, and it made me think of something that, Riley threw Eddie, in there to one of the places that the Charlie Chases of the world, they break them men down, the toughest men get broken down in these places, and Eddie seemed to make prison better for him and a lot of other people.
And then he got stronger, And the reason for that is that he is not filled with hatred and bitterness. He knows what's been done to him. But he doesn't. He doesn't want retribution. He says he'll tell you right himself. You can't live a meaningful life with hate in your heart. You can't do it. And so he had to get rid of that in order to make his life, wherever it was, worthwhile. And as he said to the parole board, I'm going to be fine wherever I end up. I know I'm going to be fine, but so he's. It's not that he's. It's made him stronger. Just that's all I can say.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because he should be so angry at the way that life was handed to him. He really should, but he sees a positive in it.
Yeah, this was the path he was given. He has no idea why, but he's going to make it a good path to walk, because that's either that or you give up.
So maybe Eddie's a prophet. Maybe he was sent there to heal broken souls. Like I said this before, but now it's time for him to come home. Now he did enough time healing broken souls, but yeah, man. When I talk about Eddie, the case, when you see the stepping stones for these political monsters and what they did to this family, you see the O'Briens, and they're such nice, humble people, and they stayed in the same neighborhood. They didn't run. They stayed there for what? For 30 years, for a long time.
Right.
You have to look at his family and say, maybe this guy didn't do it. Look at all this evidence, because nobody can tell me why he did it.
That's because he didn't. But I feel really your comments about the O'Brien family are absolutely right on. I feel really, really horrible for the Downing family who have been lied to.
All right, we'll get Margo back up here. But no, she's making great points. Let me call it back. But she is right. Margo said, yep. Margo was saying how she feels bad for the Downing family. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because their mother's killer is still at large. The O'Brien family have been able to live and grow and find meaningful ways of getting satisfaction, if there's any satisfaction to be had. I mean, they're politically active. They're active in all kinds of wrongful convictions. They've met incredible people. They have made a life around this horrible event. And the Downings have not been able to do that because they don't know who killed their mother. They think they know. And what are they going to feel like when they find out who it really was?
Do they want to know?
Do they already know?
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, there's,
I mean, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
No, I don't think anyone does. Well, somebody does,
yeah.
But do they want to know? Or why have they been, like someone said, when you talk to the other family, well, the other family had 30 years to speak up respectfully.
Right.
You can't be mad because, the O'Briens spoke up. The other family had a long time to speak up.
And justice for Eddie is justice for Janet.
Yes.
And I see a reconciliation there.
And I love what Gina said. Gina really believes that. She said something that Janet will rest in peace when Eddie is exonerated, and that was very. Gina's an emotional person. A very nice person, caring person. But when she said that, it kind of, made me think about it.
Yeah. I mean, all of this tragedy makes you think. It makes you think what you would do in that circumstance. I'd be homicidal. I'd be in the hole, every other month I'd be picking fights with people because I'd be so angry. I wouldn't know how to do time, you know?
Right. And Eddie's 7. He has 7 infractions. I had 7 in a month. He had 7 in 30 years.
And no, and he doesn't, he hasn't had alcohol ever. He hasn't had any drugs in prison or before that. You know, he's not affiliated with a gang. He's a peacemaker.
Right. No, he really is. And a lot of people told me stories how he kept the peace.
Yes.
You know, and people, because Eddie came up with a lot of guys from training school that are really, you know, big shots, you know, so they all know him and they know Eddie got screwed over. So,
yeah,
you know, it's definitely a shame, you know. And one last thing, you know, what do you think Eddie would want the world to know today about him in 2026?
All Eddie wants the world to know is that he is not a killer. He did not kill Janet. He can live with the fact that he's lost for a lot of years. He can live with the fact that nobody's ever going to apologize for that, and he can live with the fact that he was framed. But he cannot live with the fact that people would think he would do something so heinous.
You know, well, free Eddie. You know, Margo Nash, thank you, and get out to Somerville on the 7th of August, 6 to 10, right at the George Du Bois VFW, Summer Street. Now, they could buy the book. Can they get the book there? That was another question.
Yes, I will have cartons of books there, and I will be signing them for people.
So, what, you take...
buy them right there.
Credit card, cash, check?
I haven't figured that out yet. Cash would be the best, obviously, but I have a Venmo account too. So that
there you go. Pay by Venmo. Venmo's always good, you know. But get out there to Somerville. The Politics of Murder, Rule 30. You know,
and support Eddie.
Absolutely, definitely support Eddie, Margo, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And anything you want to say before you go?
No, I just want to thank you for your interest in this case, Mike, and for being so good about getting the facts out and not the sensational stuff. You know, the real facts.
Well, that's what's important. You know, the DNA. You know, all this stuff, and you know, if you're not reading off the case work, you know, you don't.
Right.
That's what's
why
important.
Eddie made that website. Because we have nothing to hide.
Right. No, absolutely.
We have nothing to hide. Yeah.
Great website. TruthAboutEddieO'Brien.com. You know, go over there and check that out. Support it. Fundraise it. Get out to the book signing, The Politics of Murder, the 2nd edition, man. I'm looking forward to it, you know. August 7th. All right. Talk to you soon.
7th. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
At least we were able to get it done. We got it done on the phone. I don't have all that Google fancy stuff, but you know, I'm glad we was able to talk to Margo. So many crazy things, you know, about Eddie and the system. 31 years, the fight to free Eddie O'Brien, the politics of murder inside the case that changed the juvenile justice system. That's right. That's why we got to stand 10 toes down for Eddie. You know what I mean? And keep breaking this stuff down, because once you hear stuff like the DNA, you know, that there's no DNA. Eddie was excluded from the DNA, the Amatol tests, you know, like everything we seen in that Amatol test. Everything, we all seen clips of the Amatol test, the truth serum. That's all we need to see. There's nothing more to see in that video. You heard him say, I didn't do nothing to Janet. I don't have the video up here now, but I don't think there's anything else to hear. I mean, you know, like, what, something humiliating? I don't think there's anything else that we could really hear on the Amatol test. I think we heard what we needed to hear was that he didn't do that to Janet. He squatted down, checked and see if she was okay. He got up out of there. Somebody came from behind. There's a reason that the court sealed it. And I think if the court sealed it, I don't know, do we have to respect that? Eddie was a minor, 15 years old when that happened. I mean, there was a lot of damning flaws in this investigation. The public still doesn't understand. And as I'm reading this shit, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. You can't even imagine that this shit would happen. Somebody that's been, locked up in the system, spent most of my 20s in prison. Back in 95, 96 is when I first started to get incarcerated. You know what I mean? Maximum security, Rhode Island. Everybody's innocent. I get that. But other people should have been investigated in this case. The friggin' crime scene was compromised. It's just kind of... It's just kind of crazy because look at all the evidence that was hidden in this case. Like this case, witnesses couldn't keep their story straight. Look at, what's his name? What's the punk's name? Paul. Look at Paul. Paul lied so many times, right? And here's a story that won't go away. A lot of people, there was one time, right, when some guy came forward, was a jailhouse snitch that surfaced to say that one dark and lonely night, Eddie decided to pour his heart out to him, and Eddie confessed to the crime. Imagine that shit. He confessed to the crime, it says. It says this is common occurrence in these high-profile cases, right? Riley informed Bob George, right, that he was going to call this guy as a witness, right? But as it turns out, the dude wasn't even incarcerated in the same building as Eddie. During the time that Eddie was there, they never even crossed paths. There's a lot of that going around. There is a lot of that going around. And like Margo was saying, going into the end of the trial, right? Eddie still thought he was going to testify. He thought he was going to get up on that witness stand and tell what happened. I think it might have been a tough judgment call because Riley was just gunning, and was Eddie at the time, you think he would have been able to stand up to Riley? You know what I mean? Riley is a grown adult who made a living out of this shit, even though he never, that was his first case, I believe. But Margo ended up asking him that day. I asked him that day, as I had on many other days during his trial, if his lawyers ever been up to the jail to prepare him for testimony yet. Not yet, he said, but they're coming up tonight. Eddie always had so much faith in these guys. Imagine, how do they feel knowing that there's a kid, a 15-year-old kid that's sitting in prison? These lawyers, you're real pieces of shit. Excuse my language. I didn't say that, did I? Pardon me. They're real scumbags. You know what I mean? Knowing that there's a 15-year-old kid sitting in jail. that's facing life in prison, and you can't even go up and see him. That is crazy. Absolutely, man. They are all going to have a judgment day. Eddie looked up to these attorneys, looked up to Bob George, probably like he was a god. Eddie didn't pay attention to none of his trial. He was playing hangman, for crying out loud. He didn't know what was going on. But big shout out to Margo for, exposing a lot of this. I kind of got thrown off with the phone thing. Yeah, we got it done. I try, right? Eddie passed. He told the truth. And I appreciate all you guys, man. I appreciate y'all. Big shout out to Mr. O.B. Ed O'Brien. I just like to give that man so much respect, and so much that he has went through, his family has went through. I ask any of these law tubers to look at this case. Talk about this case, man. This is an interesting case for people to talk about. Never mind all the gossip, right? And the stories that are very shiny and a lot of drama to them. Go to thetruthabouteddieobrien.com. Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate that. Go to thetruthabouteddieobrien.com and look. All the casework is up on there. Riley's notes. Riley wrote a blueprint to setting up Eddie. Imagine that. He wrote a damn blueprint to setting this kid up. Give me a minute. I'll be right back.
Late night in Somerville, shadows flicker and play. Whispers of a crime, but the truth lost its way. Crime, the silent sharp as a knife. Janet on the floor, a brutal end to her life. Pinning it on a kid who didn't stand a chance. Eddie at 15, caught in a circumstance. No blood on his clothes, no stains on his feet. But Thomas Riley's schemes beneath the heat. A plan climbing high with disdain, using power and a case, feeding off the pain. Can we keep it real? Yes, we can. We can. Locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man. Can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. They buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. We keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Yeah, they found a knife hilt on the stair below. Male DNA, but Eddie's wasn't on show. Fingernails, whole skin from a desperate fight. Riley shut his eyes, turned out the light. What about the suspect in the blood by his cab? What about real leads they refused to grab? No forced entry found, just a political state. Riley climbing higher for his own game to make. Keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy, destroyed a young man. Young man, can we keep it real? Look at the frame. Riley hid the truth just to build up his name. Locked out the facts, woo, they buried the proof, but we stand right here, demanding the truth. Keep it real, yes we can. They locked away a boy and destroyed a young man. Hey, 30 years gone in a cell for a crime while he sat on the throne making sure to climb. Called him a monster, a predator so cold. Changing laws to cover truths too bold. Rule 30 motion, ready to rise. Let's test the DNA. No more alibis. Yeah, keep it real. Test the hills, test the nails. No more covers, no more political sounds. Yes, we can. Free Eddie O'Brien. The truth is coming
All righty, Dad. Appreciate that. Shout out to Freebird for that, you know. She inspired them lyrics. She sent me an email, said, this is for all the hard work for you and your wife, you know. Put it together how you want, you know. So we came up with that, you know. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys, man. You are all great, you know. And I ain't no pro at this. I didn't go to school for this. I just, look, it needs to be said, right? It needs to be said. It needs to be heard. You know, there's so many tentacles of this case, the timeline. Like these timelines, some of them need a friggin' tutor. Look at Paul Downing. He gave 2 grand jury testimonies, right? And somehow managed to contradict himself in both of them, right? How do you remix your own story that fast? Ryan, another one. Did Ryan do any better? I mean, he jumped around like he was on a playlist. Every time he talked, the prosecution's theory needed some kind of update. And we look, science, right? Science don't lie. Is that what they say? DNA don't lie. Well, where's the DNA? It's not there. The DNA was screaming, it wasn't Eddie. But nobody wanted to listen. The fingerprint, right? No DNA. The serology didn't match Eddie. And we'll have to break that down and explain what that means to people. I already did one on the DNA. I think I broke that down pretty good. But the prosecution looked at all of this shit, right? And said, shh, the jury don't need to hear that shit. The jury don't need to know. Listen to what Margo said. She said, I didn't even know about the DNA at the trial. It's like, wow. And then Riley coming up with Eddie was a 12, you know? So we get what? You know, 8 out of this column and 4 out of this column. And that's how you come up with 12. No, it don't work that way, Riley. But people bought it. What was George doing? I mean, this dude Riley was able to get away with the ultimate. He built a murder conviction with no evidence. That's not a case. That's something where everybody lies about doing their part. Kind of sound familiar? The jury never saw a lot of things. Exculpatory evidence, location redacted. It places Eddie somewhere else entirely when the crime happened. He wasn't a magician. What I say, he was a magician and a ninja. So he was able to get my boy Johnny Cellini, right? Back in the 80s, maybe 88, 89, Oneyville. He grabs this lady, grabs her in the van, takes her up to Marino Park, right? That's the park between the two housing projects in Providence, right? Manton Projects on one side, Hoffett Projects on the other, and there's a bridge that separates them. Johnny had a van. Well, Johnny ended up stabbing that lady like 98 times, 100 something times. It was somewhere around 100 times. You could look it up. The state of Rhode Island versus Johnny Cellini, not to be confused with his brother Bobby Cellini, who stabbed the lady, or his other brother Jimmy Cellini. They're all knife happy, all the Cellinis. They just like knives. But Johnny ended up stabbing a lady, like friggin', and he's on my page. He probably sees this. I keep asking him to come talk about it, but them old ex-cons, man. But I said, yo, would he be covered in blood? Oh, absolutely. Head to toe, in his eyes, in his nose, in his ears. Kind of like that Ravioli song. It would have been everywhere. It would have been everywhere. The juror misconduct shit, how about that? I mean, these jurors were out here behaving like we the people. Speculation, doing everything but following instructions. Let me ask you, anyone out there that feels that Eddie's guilty, I just want to know, what makes you think he's guilty? I'm just curious how a lot of people, what makes him guilty? You know what I mean? And nobody can really tell me. A lot of people, some people can say, oh, this or that, but most people say, well, a jury convicted him. Yeah, I know, but a jury will convict anything. You know, a jury will convict anything. And I think that one of the main grounds for Eddie's Rule 30 motion was the jury was impartial, because they were. They were definitely impartial. He worked with someone on the jury. Now let's go back to the report that they hope people never read, right? There's another document the prosecution thinks he hoped no one ever found, and it had contradictions in it, suppressed evidence, investigative failures, witness issues, and a whole lot of wait, what? Can I get a what? The jury didn't get any of that. The jury got some dollar store bull crap of what you thought the truth was. Adi Ortiz. This guy, like he's auditioning for a crime drama. Every time he opens his mouth, the story changes. About Bob Pino, the chemist that gave testimonies so bullshit it needed a seatbelt. The data didn't support the prosecution's narrative. It didn't support the narrative. but they're presenting it like it's damn gospel. The DNA testing that they refused to do, the prosecutor, right, blocking DNA testing of other suspects, they blocked it. They didn't want it done. Bob George put a motion in to test Adi Ortiz, Paul Downing Sr., Paul Jr., Ryan, and the judge went along with it. Absolutely. The friggin' judge went along with it. I mean, if you are confident in your case, right, you don't hide the science, right? Unless you know the science isn't on your side. You know what I mean? Unless you know that, the science ain't down with you, that the science ain't trying to hear that, they ain't cooperating. They already decided what the deal was. Margo said that it didn't really matter. He said nobody could have saved Eddie. Look, from day one when Judge Heffernan, the juvenile transfer hearing, right? That shows the whole thing was mishandled from day one. It's like the system said, we already decided the ending, so let's work backwards. That's reverse profiling. That's what that is. That's called reverse profiling. They're going to say, all right, this is where we want to get to. This is who we want. Let's make the evidence fit Eddie. And that's reverse profiling. That's what they do in a lot of Black and brown America. They reverse profile. They know you didn't do it, but you know what? They don't care. They're going to get you anyway. I think the bottom line is, right? What Riley did, he built the murder conviction on contradictions, right? On missing evidence, on bogus science, shaky witnesses, right? A jury that couldn't follow damn instructions. They hid everything that proved Eddie didn't do it. Is this the kind of justice you want? I take a look around and I look at some of the young 15, 17 teenagers, young kids. And I think of them being in Eddie's shoes. And I was like, that kid will get eaten up alive in the joint. They'll devour somebody like him, and I was like, he wouldn't make it. And you think of how sad it is. You know what I mean? Like, people standing by Eddie for 31 years. Margo standing strong. Knowing that there's something really wrong with this case because Eddie didn't do it. But there's really nothing you could really do about it. Imagine a 31-year battle. Margo refused to let Eddie get buried by the system. She stood up for him even when politics got loud, when the media got messy, when shit got convenient. So salute to Margo Nash for staying 10 toes down for Eddie. And for a lot of people, because it looks like she built her career protecting people that society forgets. And I'm sure she could have became a lot wealthier. I don't know how she's well off she is, but I'm sure she could have been doing other types of law, but no. She wants to help the people that society forgot all about, the vulnerable, the people that don't have much. You know, and I think before she ever stepped into Eddie's world, she already seen what it was like when she had her job with the Department of Social Services. Seeing firsthand how broken the system is, how these kids get devoured, right? And she leaves that job. And I think at that point, I think she opened her own practice. And she said, you know what? I'm going to help kids. I'm going to dedicate my life to helping parents, to helping juvenile law. You know, get some pro bono cases, you know. And then she ended up meeting a terrified 15-year-old boy through the most political charge case the Commonwealth has probably ever seen and ever will see. They needed her to be the guardian, ad lib, you know, call it a gal. She was responsible for Eddie understanding his rights, right? Understanding humanity. You know, she had to sit through all the hearings, every file. She had to watch every political move. Shout out to Margo, man. I really got to say, because seeing everything she's been through the last 31 years, standing tall, you have to salute that. And I'm sure it made her a better person. You know, a better human, you know, all that stuff, man. But, all right, people, man, you already know. I appreciate y'all. Sorry for the technical mess ups. You know, the haters can laugh at me after, but that's how we do it. We keep it real, right? We don't delete shit. We just keep it the way it is. Shout out to everybody. You know, free Eddie. You know, appreciate the chat. Always staying peaceful, and you know, thank you for the people that held us down. Big shout out to Courtney for the 5 gifted memberships. You know, really appreciate you. You know, Freebird, Miss Luscious with the 5 gifted memberships. Freebird with 5 gifted memberships. You know, and then Freebird coming in early, coming in hot with the 10 gifted memberships. I appreciate everything that y'all do. It all helps. You know, be nice to get them gifted memberships back up there. You know, we was over 300 at one time. I was like, oh, that is awesome. 300 members. I think we're down to like 180. You know, but I appreciate everybody, plus whatever today is, you know. But happy 4th of July. I hope everyone stays safe. And you already know, give me a minute. I'll be right back. We'll leave you with some tunes. I'm out of here. I'll be back with a quick word.
Yeah. You know where I stand? Yeah. You know where I stand? These walls echo my name, but they don't know my truth. Captured in a frame, but my spirit's bulletproof. Took my freedom away, but couldn't silence my call. That whisper in the night, I'm innocent after all.
I am still here. Hear my voice, can't you see?
I rise with the sun.
Can nobody bury me? I am still here. Hear my heart, can't you feel?
Truth runs deep within.
It's the only thing that's real.
Yeah. Counting down the years, but seasons on pause. Watch my dreams fade light behind bars. Hope is my anchor, a lifeline in the storm. Warmed by time, but my spirit won't conform. They label me a ghost, but my heart's still alive. The weight of a crime that I never contrived. No truth could change me, no lie could erase who I am inside. Rooted deep in this place.
Every sunrise whispers, justice will find a way.
I keep my head high.
Living for that day.
To those who believe,
Thank you for seeing me.
the man beyond the wall.
Longing to be free.
Refuse to let bitterness
to find my legacy. Instead, I hold faith, letting hope set me free. One day these gates will swing wide, truth will walk with pride. And when that moment comes, I'll be standing side by side.
Until that day arrives, I'll stand tall in my fight. Keep saying who I am, voice echoing through the night. I carry my story, it's far from over now. A heart of resilience, I'll show you just how. I am he and he is me. I am innocent, you see.
My story's still being written.
One day I shall be free. I'll chase the dawn, I'll seek the light. I won't back down.
With every step I take,
I'm claiming solid ground.
yeah. You know where I stand. Yeah.
You know where we stand.
You know where
Free
I stand.
Eddie.
These walls
Free
echo
Eddie. Free Eddie. That's a fact, man. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all. You know, and you know, we pulled together, right? We pulled together the facts, the receipts. You always got to put the truth on record, man. But I appreciate all of y'all, man, for being here, you know, and helping us talk this shit about Eddie O'Brien. You know, maybe, you know, try to help him get a new trial, get that Rule 30 done. You know, because that's what Rule 30s are made for. Shit like this, you know, juror misconduct, that one of the jurors worked with Paul Sr. But I'll tell you what, when the truth shows up, the lies get quiet. The lies get really, really quiet. The lies get quiet. I just don't know how people can align themselves with the likes of an Adi Ortiz, even after all the lying that he's done. You know, how people can associate with that man, you know, because you can't be Free Eddie and want to chum it up with Adi Ortiz. You know? But we had to get Margo to call in, because when you're fighting for someone who's been buried under decades, I mean decades, of bad storytelling and some bullshit justice, right? You don't sit on the sidelines, right? You show up, you speak up, you stand up, and thank you, Margo, man. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for speaking up, you know, and I think that's exactly what happened today. We got it done. You know, I always said neutral, man. I think neutral's a negative. If you ain't with me, you against me. You know what I mean? You know, I don't got no beef in this. Yeah, you on my side or you not? Are you with me or you not? That's all I want to know. If you with me, you with me. If you not, you not. It's okay. It's okay. But this wasn't just a show. I think this was a great, great statement. A line in the sand. You know, a reminder that Eddie O'Brien, listen, man, listen. Eddie is not forgotten. Eddie is not forgotten by any means at all. You know, we definitely did not forget Eddie. I think this was a great, great show. It's a reminder that if we all come together and we don't be silenced, you know, and we have our own mind, we're definitely not alone, because all these contradictions we exposed, whether you're on this channel, another channel, whatever channel you want, these contradictions are being exposed. You know? Come on now. Every timeline we end up breaking down, every piece of evidence, right, that they're trying to hide, and go over the actual evidence. You know, all of that stuff, every piece of it, drag it into the light. Once the light hits it, man, the darkness, evil cannot pretend anymore. So listen, man, to everybody watching, listening, sharing, supporting our platform, man, you were part of this as well. You know, you make today a great, great turning point. Make sure you show up August 7th at the Somerville VFW from 6 to 10, Margo Nash book signing. Get your book. July 28th, books go on sale. You know, we really got to try to, work together and do what we got to do to get a guy like Eddie O'Brien home. There's been a lot of great content put out. You know, TFK worked months, put out all kind of crazy ass content. You know, went over this case. And I always say, man, I wouldn't know about this case. I wouldn't know about Eddie O'Brien, but now we know, and now we are just getting started, right? Absolutely, I agree. I think the Downer family had 30 years to speak up, 30 years to talk. 30 years to speak up. Yeah, I could see it both ways. I could see it both ways. I guess it all depends, what you're, but I think in a case like this, I don't know, can you be neutral? I mean, when you look at all the evidence, can you really be neutral? Like with the no DNA, like all the stuff that goes very, I mean, I don't know if I could be neutral on a case like this where there's so much overwhelming evidence. But maybe. But we got it done, man. Appreciate everybody, Yeah, it'd be a good, good times coming. So everyone get out there to the VFW in Somerville, August 7th. And get out to Margo Nash's book signing and support. Thank you for the ones that supported me with the Venmo. Can we keep it real, Venmo? Thank you for the 10 gifted. Thank you for the 5, Courtney Freeberg with another 5, Ms. Luscious with 5 as well. Really appreciate everybody's support. And peace.
Yeah. Them the tree they tried to bury. Yeah. I'm the storm, yeah. I'm the storm they tried to bottle. The truth they tried to drown. 15 years old, they threw a king's weight on a child's crown. But I rise like a riot, like a siren in the night. And I'm calling out the dude who's been ducking the light. Name's Art Ortiz, yeah, that fraud. Moving like a shadow puppet pulled by a coward god. Every time the block shake, he the first one to vanish. Moving like guilt, wearing sneakers, sprinting off in a panic. I'm like, why you always running when the truth get loud? Why your footsteps echo different from the rest of the crowd? You slid through the alleys like a rumor with legs. But when the questions start flying, you crack like eggs. I was sitting on the porch, whole hood saw me chilling. You was creeping through the dark like a plot. You was feeling you a ghost with a heartbeat, a whisper with shoes, a silhouette sprinting off, dropping half-baked clues. I spit metaphors heavy, you the fence jumper phantom, the backyard bandit, the night shift random. You the type to leave footprints, but swear you ain't walk. The type to hear your name whispered and pretend you ain't talk. I'm the kid they tried to bury, but I grew like a vine. Truth climbing every wall, exposing every design. You the dude in the shadows, ducking every spotlight beam, moving like a glitch in the neighborhood dream. This ain't an accusation, this a lyrical rig, a metaphor for every grown man who let a child bleed, for every dude who stayed silent while a kid took the fall, for every shadow in the night who ain't stand up at all. So fictional art, so listen, I'm the storm you can't dodge. I'm the truth in the alley, I'm the ghost in the lodge. I'm the voice of the timeline, the pulse of the street, and every lie you ever told get exposed to the beat. So keep running and hiding, but you can't escape. Truth so relentless, tide your facade's gonna break. I'm the storm, I'm the light, I'm the echo, the fight. And when the beat drops down, you're gonna feel me tonight. Yeah. Yeah. Them the tree they tried to bury. Yeah. I'm the storm, yeah. I'm the storm they tried to bottle. The truth they tried to drown. 15 years old, they threw a king's weight on a child's crown. But I rise like a riot, like a siren in the night. And I'm calling out the dude who's been ducking the light. Name's Art Ortiz, yeah, that fraud. Moving like a shadow puppet pulled by a coward god. Every time the block shake, he the first one to vanish. Moving like guilt, wearing sneakers, sprinting off in a panic. I'm like, why you always running when the truth get loud? Why your footsteps echo different from the rest of the crowd? You slid through the alleys like a rumor with legs. But when the questions start flying, you crack like eggs. I was sitting on the porch, whole hood saw me chilling. You was creeping through the dark like a plot. You was feeling you a ghost with a heartbeat, a whisper with shoes, a silhouette sprinting off, dropping half-baked clues. I spit metaphors heavy, you the fence jumper phantom, the backyard bandit, the night shift random. You the The night shift random, you the type to leave footprints, but swear you ain't walk.
Yeah. Left my house feeling good, sun shining bright. So Tony G on the porch, just a casual sight. But then I glanced down the door, wide ajar. I had to check it out, my heart racing like a car. I stepped into the entrance, felt the chill of the night. Heard some noise from within, never thought it felt so right. With the creak of the door, darkness feel like a wave. What I saw left me frozen, man, I couldn't be brave. You can charge me, but I'm not guilty. Caught in the moment, life's a little filthy. Wasn't ready for the shadows lurking near, but I hold my ground, got nothing to fear. I called out to Janet, but silence gripped my throat. My instincts kicked in hard like I'm on a tightrope. Bend down to shake a heart pounding like a drum. But what I saw next made me feel so numb. Blood on the floor like a canvas dread. Thoughts racing through my mind, what happened? Where's she dead? Caught in the scene like an actor in a play. Hoping that somehow I could just walk away. You can charge me, but I'm not guilty. Life's a battlefield, got my eyes wide, feel free. Darkness all around, but I still choose to fight. Got nothing to hide, stepping into this light. In the neighborhood where shadows cast long. Every step I take feels like I'm doing something wrong. But I'm just a witness caught in a strange view. Justice on the line, but what's a man to do? Finger pointed at me, but I can't take the blame. Standing tall in this arena, it's a twisted game. The sirens well outside, bringing chaos and heat. But truth is on my side, I won't accept defeat. feet. Life's a rough patch, it's a turbulent sea, but in the stormy moment I stand, I am free. No incriminations here, it's just a misunderstanding, but time will reveal truths, no need for demanding. So I keep my head high, I won't falter or bow, charging through the thick air, stating here and now. You can charge me, but I'm not guilty. Caught in a whirlwind, but I stand gracefully. Life's twisted plots can try to bring me down, but I'm stronger than the shadows, wear the truth like a crown. Yeah. Left my house feeling good, sun shining bright. So Tony G on the porch, just a casual sight. But then
In a world made of shadows, where the truth feels far away, you find yourself behind bars for a price you didn't pay. You go to prison, fight your case with every breath you take, standing on your truth in the face of all this heartbreak. I didn't do this, you shout, but they turn their heads away, ignoring echoes of your innocence. You face another day. And what does the parole board say? Drowning in the protocol. You show no remorse, you're not fitting the role at all. How you gonna take responsibility for a storm you didn't cause? Like blaming someone for the rain just because they were outdoors. The system don't care about your truth, they care about compliance. Confess to a crime uncommitted, that's your only guidance. It's a trapdoor either way, no escape from their design. Parole board wants confessions, not a hint of reason or a sign. Not seeking justice, but looking for neat boxes checked, as they mold a simple story, leaving your truth wrecked. 20 years in, you still stand tall, saying I didn't do this. They don't celebrate your honesty, it's lost in all the myths. How you gonna take responsibility for a storm you didn't cause? Like blaming someone for the rain just because they were outdoors. The system don't care about your truth, they care about compliance. Confess to a crime uncommitted, that's your only guidance. This ain't rehabilitation, oh, it's coercion without end. How can a man find freedom when guilt
turns to liability. Still holding on to truth, your fight for clarity. So here's to the dreamers behind steel and stone. Your truth is still your own. You're never alone. The system needs to change. Real remorse it must define. Innocence is not your fault. It's their dark design. You deserve a path home too. Every day holds on to hope. Let the truth be your compass, helping you to cope.
Not promote or promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for educational purpose only.
Yeah. You know where I stand. Yeah. You know where I stand. These walls echo my name, but they don't know my truth. Captured in a frame, but my spirit's bulletproof. Took my freedom away, but couldn't silence my call. That whisper in the night, I'm innocent after all.
I am still here. Hear my voice, can't you see?
I rise with the sun.
Can nobody bury me? I am still here. Hear my heart, can't you feel?
Truth runs deep within.
It's the only thing that's real.
Counting down the years, but seasons on pause. Watch my dreams fade like light behind bars. Hope is my anchor, a lifeline in the storm. Warmed by time, but my spirit won't conform. They label me a ghost, but my heart's still alive. The weight of a crime that I never contrived. No truth could change me, no lie could erase who I am inside. Rooted deep in this place.
Every sunrise whispers, justice will find a way.
I keep my head high.
Living for that day.
To those who believe,
Thank you for seeing me.
the man beyond the wall.
Longing to be free.
Refuse to let bitterness define my legacy. Instead I hold faith, letting hope set me free. One day these gates will swing wide, truth will walk with pride. And when that moment comes, I'll be standing side by side.
Until that day arrives, I stand tall in my fight. Keep saying who I am, voice echoing through the night. I carry my story, it's far from over now. A heart of resilience, I'll show you just how. I am he and he is me. I am innocent, you see.
My story's still being written.
One day I shall be free. I'll chase the dawn, I'll seek the light, I won't back down.
With every step I take,
I'm claiming solid ground. Tonight's the night, let the music play. Feel the thrill, all the rules.
Hey, yo. They said Janet came home normal. I said, stop the cap, cause the neighbor saw the whole scene. Her behavior wasn't regular. That timeline, nothing about it clean. People don't pull in, sit 5 minutes, pull back out, park again. Stand outside like they fighting thoughts deep within. Unless something heavy got under their skin. Oh, Commonwealth wanna pretend she was calm. Man, miss me with that. Michelle watched the whole routine glitch, like a mind buffering, trying to process a fact. She only brought in 2 bags, but the trunk was full. If everything normal, why she moving like she's stuck in a lull? Why leave the rest in the car? Why freeze up mid-task? Why step back out and smoke like she needed time to unmask? That ain't I just got home. There's something weighing on me, as my spirit ain't settled. That somebody or something been playing on me. She smoked the whole cigarette.